Peace, everyone. Shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Peace, peace, peace. If you are coming in, I'm just greeting everyone. It's midday motivation as usual. Um, I just wanted to talk a little bit about protein today. And what I did today was I placed the link in the chat. So, if you're interested in, joining or coming on, asking a question or two, or just sharing your own experience when it comes to this conversation around protein, you know, check out the link. It's not a link I can post, but I posted it in my Instagram on my Instagram post. So check it out. And if you like, you can join. All right. Greetings, Chief Yuya Music to be exact. Thank you. Thank you for coming into space and just blessing us up with your presence. Give thanks, Sister Manira, blessing us up with your presence. Thank you so much. I wanted to know if I can be heard. I know everyone is greeting each other, but if you can hear me clearly and see me clearly, let me know. If you can't, let me know that too, so I don't keep talking with a green screen or a black screen or whatever. But if you can hear me, and I always forget that there's this bit of delay, right? So sometimes I forget that there's a delay of sorts at times. But if you can hear me, okay, good, good, good. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I I'm gonna start off with, just the idea of what is there a protein problem, right? Because I think when I first started off on my journey, what fascinated me was the fact that I discovered that like protein wasn't really a problem at all. It's what you're consuming that gives your body the ability to build all of the build and use. It's like building blocks, right? Build and utilize all of these different amino acids to help support. And so healthy skin, healthy bones and nails, um those things are all because of protein. And like I kept thinking about just the constant questions that would always come, right? The questions are always going to be something around, well, where do you get your protein from? And it seems like if it's an old story, an old line, but the truth is there are many people who still ask those questions, maybe just out of being rude and not necessarily caring about where we do get our protein from, if we need protein at all. But the truth is we do. All right. But the problem is not so much if we're eating protein, but if we're accessing sufficient amino acids to build muscle. And I think the larger issue is because like I wanted to talk about all of the different ways we can get protein and so on, but protein is in many of the foods that we consume. I think the real problem is not so much with those of us who are plant-based, but the people who are consuming highly processed fats and saturated fat foods that are animal-based. That's the problem, because like animal fats and animal protein is actually what leads to high levels of things like endometrial and prostate cancers and things like that. And I'm going to say this, like, I have had relatives who suffer from things like endometriosis and even fibroids. And that is directly on account of protein being a problem. So yeah, protein is a problem, but not for me, right? Protein is a problem, but maybe not for any plant-based person. I think the protein is the problem, animal protein, that is. I think the protein is the problem for meat eaters, right? Meat eaters who eat without discretion and eat without, like considering the high saturated fats that are present, and, just how carcinogenic animal proteins could be, right? But the truth is, once we're consuming foods that give us a lot of access to a variety of amino acids, we are good. The only thing I will speak about when it comes to those of us who are plant-based and are focused on just utilizing plants as a source of nutrients and nutrition, um, and to help build healthy skin and muscles in particular, you have to make sure that you're eating the right proteins, not proteins, the right plants, sorry, that will help to build amino acids. So making sure that you have a variety. I know when we shift and we change, many times that shift and change, we tend to eat the same things. Even though we shift into a plant-based diet, we tend to go for the same junk foods. We want fat, salt, and sugar, right? So fat, salt, sweet. That's it. We go for fat, salt, sweet. And if the fat, salt, sweet doesn't satisfy us, we find cayenne pepper to, like run a train track through our mouths. That's how we get that's how we get what we want, right? That fix, so to speak. So I think being very careful being very careful about the combinations, and opening up ourselves to variety is very important, really key, because you can get stuck very easily. All right, I want to pause and greet Deidre Sully and also Akuya. Thank you for joining us. I saw a message in the chat. Chief Yuya Music says, when you speak to carnivores about pulling back on the meat, they always become protein experts. This is true. They do. They do. The unfortunate thing is, if they were experts, they would be able to identify all of the data and the research that shows that the reason why women have such high cases of fibroids and endometriosis and such high levels of prostate cancers exist and run rampant in melanated communities is due to protein, the wrong type of protein, right? And that's the type they want. That's the type they want to argue or have a case for. But I think it's really important to realize that, again, our foods have such a wide variety. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about a really long list of foods to share with you all, and I kept saying to myself, well, why do we need a long list? The majority of foods we consume already provide the majority of combinations of amino acids. The only thing is, there are essential ones that the body doesn't create or doesn't make, right? The body doesn't create those, but we can access them through supplements. And how should I say this? Like, I know sometimes after a while I had no choice but to jump onto supplements and finding supplements that work for me. And the truth is, you're going to have to, right? You're going to have to depend, if you're trying to get pregnant, or maybe if you're trying to overcome some sort of injury. There are times in our journey when we're going to have to jump on I want to say the bandwagon, but we're going to have to jump on the supplementation, right? Adding things to our diet, adding things to our lifestyle so that we can boost up the amount of amino acids, those 9 that are those essential ones, right? So sea moss, and I know everywhere you go, you hear people talk about, oh my God, sea moss, sea moss, sea moss. But the truth is, algae and sea vegetables have excellent amounts of amino acids and proteins that are made available and easily assimilated by our human body. So if you're fighting with the sea moss, don't fight with it. Have it. And have it in generous amounts. Eat it every day, right? Eat it like any other food. Okay, let me remember to pause and stop talking and make a little check in the chat just to see how everyone's doing. Peace. All right, we have some more sisters and some more brothers joining us. Greetings, Naya. Peace. Peace, Lakira. How are you? Lakira Tompkins. And shalom, Sister Kashia. All right. So yeah, so I'll jump back on it. And again, the link I shared on my Instagram, and that link kind of offers you the opportunity to jump on camera or in the chat if you like, if you don't want to come on camera now, to share a little bit about your journey, right? Your protein journey. Is protein a problem for you? And if it is, share what that problem is, right? Lakira says currently drinking sea moss and bladder wrack at the moment. Excellent. Excellent. Like I said, the sea vegetables are an excellent form of amino acids and high in minerals. 98. You can't go wrong with including it. There's no prescription, there's no dose, unless you're working with you have issues with your thyroid and it's imbalanced, then you have to reel in. And I'm going to say you have to work with your holistic practitioner at that moment so you can know what amounts, whether to scale back or to increase. But you can't go wrong with consuming these things daily. But I have a few for you that I'm sure you'll be happy. You'll be happy to hear that you do not have to lean on supplements only to be able to access amino acids that your body can assimilate. There are greens that you can enjoy. Mustard greens is one. I probably have shared it before. Once spring comes, if you take a regular hike, let's say in the south, if you take a regular hike along a trail, it is very easy to find mustard greens. I'm not saying to go and forage along the trail where everybody walks, but I am saying you may find large pastures, large areas that are, you won't necessarily find a lot of, human activity or people around, but it's an area where you can forage, you can find mustard greens in the market, you can find dandelion greens as well. Mustard greens have about 56% of it is protein that can be assimilated by the human body. So if you've never had mustard greens, go out and try it. They have a very garlicky taste, right? They have a very garlicky taste and they have a bite to it like mustard does. So maybe that's why they call it mustard greens. I don't know. But again, sea vegetables like seaweed, Lakira said or suggested bladder wrack. That's also excellent. Bladder wrack is bitter, so that's something I'm going to suggest you. If you get the powder, you mix it in water. Do not try to add it to your smoothie or your shake. You will ruin it and you will be upset with yourself. So unless you're a person who doesn't mind drinking something that's bitter or it doesn't taste pleasing, right? Food is not necessarily for entertainment or for pleasure, but we use it in that way anyway, right? But again, sea moss, you can use the gel in smoothies or shakes. If you were to purchase the sea moss powder, I'm also going to suggest that you use it as you would use the bladder wrack powder, because again, depending on the brand, sometimes the taste is not necessarily a pleasant one. But again, it's all about the nutritional content. And so if that's what you're looking for, it's not going to be a bother for you. All right. I have a pressing question, but before I do, I'm going to suggest a few others, right? So, a few other things that you want to make sure you include every other day. So, these others like legumes and of course legumes, they come with like a little bit of soaking and they come with a little bit of soaking and changing of the water and even sprouting. Some seeds and nuts as well too. You're going to need to utilize the soaking and changing of the water. But pumpkin seeds are about 56% as well too. So they are also very high in protein, and so you want to consider utilizing pumpkin seeds for pates and other things, or just adding them into your salads, right? um that's something that you can use. It's an excellent substitute instead of using, almonds and other seeds. Sesame is also a great option. That's one of the reasons why tahini is a go-to. So tahini is definitely a great substitute and a great go-to instead of peanuts, because peanuts um, can cause allergies, or some people have allergic reactions to them. Lots of children do too. So tahini is a good option. Again, if you use tahini, you won't necessarily be able to soak those seeds unless you have something like a dehydrator. Again, you'll probably hear me say this so many times, or a gas light or piloted oven, right? Because once you soak it, you want to dry off that extra moisture. All right. So, what did I miss? So, I mentioned pumpkin seed, seaweed, I mentioned mustard greens, watercress. And I've mentioned watercress on here before. High in amino acids and protein that's available to us. You also want to look at things like artichokes and even broccoli and cruciferous veggies on a whole, right? But the specifics are like broccoli and what is that? Brussels sprouts. I was just about to say, what is that little round one? Brussels sprouts. Now, the thing is, I think I mentioned this before too. Like, if you have issues digesting broccoli, try to go with what's considered broccoli rabe, which is a older version, or a less a less, how do you call it? I'm looking for the word. I can't find it, but yeah, just it's a older version, I guess, of broccoli. So broccoli rabe. I do see broccolini sometimes in the markets. So those are easier to digest than broccoli is, right? So those are some veggies that you want to jump on and think about. Mushrooms, of course, will never go out of style. They too are high in proteins as well and amino acids. So those are some options for you all. But again, remember, the problem isn't with the access to proteins or your body being able to create protein. Your body can create proteins. All right. There are only a few that your body cannot produce. And again, all you need to do is just, grab some supplements, or again, lean heavily on the sea algae. So sea moss, bladderwrack, spirulina, chlorella, right? If you purchase chlorella, make sure you purchase it in frozen form. Never buy chlorella. I was about to say chlorella. Never buy it in just powdered form. Make sure it's frozen, all right, because that preserves all of its nutrients. Deidre says it's bitter. What's bitter, Deidre? Deidre says it's bitter, but I'm not sure what she's saying is bitter. And let me just highlight this other idea here, the suggestion of sea moss and bladderwrack. She says it's bitter. I take it you mean the mustard greens or the watercress. Yeah, it could be. It could be if it's very mature, but again, we're not eating for pleasure, are we? Or are we? Maybe we are, I don't know, but oh, the broccoli rabe. It's but bitter is good. Bitter is good because bitter helps to increase the digestive enzymes. So, yes, 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 yes. Bitter is good. If you have digestive issues, you want to eat bitter all day. Parsley, broccoli rabe, chickweed, mustard greens, those dandelion greens, those bitter ones. They're good, really good for you. Increase your again digestive enzymes and support you. All right, so I'll close, but I will say I'm going to talk a little bit more about proteins just because I think I want to cover, like the different ways that indulging in animal-based proteins can actually harm us. And I also want to explore a little bit about, the struggles that vegans have or those who are plant-based people have that struggle with what happens is a very important question. What very important question? What very important question? Um, what protein problem? Well, so yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing me that. So that very important question, is I think maybe you all probably have had that issue too. I don't know, but I think there's an issue when it comes to not having or consuming sufficient amino acids and building up proteins. Because which leads to like how should I say it? Low muscle mass, right? Low muscle mass. And I'm not saying it as it being like an issue. Low muscle mass has a lot to do with exercise and movement and things like that, but I know there's like this constant conversation around um developing muscle in those who are vegan. And so I think we have lots of plant-based people on here, so feel free to jump in the chat and share your experience when it comes to building muscle and low levels of amino acids or proteins, or your body not being able to actually process. It's 1 o'clock. I just got a little calendar notice, but your body not being able to process or create proteins. So that means that it's very difficult for your body to actually rebuild muscle mass or build muscle mass at all. That was the very important question toward the beginning. But when I looked at the time, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't have time to explore it. But that's something that I am, like I'm interested in. So Lakira or Deidre, Chief, maybe you or even Brother Antonio, share what has your journey been like when it comes to, like the protein problem, if it's a problem at all. And if it is, like, how did it manifest, right? And specifically, I'm looking for responses around muscle tissue, right? There are other things too. Some people talk about brain fog and so on, but I really want to explore that tidbit about muscle tissue. She says, definitely building muscle on meat is easier, but it's different. Often when you're plant-based, you're not as concerned about the bulk of muscle. It's a mind state. I see. It's a mind state. It's true that you aren't preoccupied with building muscle, right? And bulking up. It's true, but like I wonder if the difference. I think this is a good place to explore it. I wonder if the difference in the type of protein is can be part of that struggle, if it is a struggle for anyone. Lakira says muscle building and memory are of no concern for me. I see, I see, I see. She says usually plant-based folks are more interested in flexibility, endurance, and overall health. Bodybuilders can be extremely unhealthy as well too. Hmm. I am not a bodybuilder, but maybe you can explain a little bit more, share a little bit more about how bodybuilders can be extremely unhealthy. I guess based on the statement you said before, you mentioned that, those who are shifting into plant-based aren't really particularly overly concerned with bulk and muscle. And bodybuilders are, focused on bulk and bulking up and muscle. And so I'm sure they're preoccupied with consuming higher levels of animal-based protein specifically. um, and of course, I'm sure that kind of leads to elevated levels of cholesterol and things like that, and maybe even type 2 diabetes. But they're still able to bulk up, maybe even faster. And I'm not saying that they aren't. I do follow and see lots of, men and women who are plant-based, and they're able to build muscle and maintain it. They're able to build muscle and maintain it. Lakira says, agreed. We are more preoccupied with the holistic development versus bulk. I see. I see. I see. So it's really, again, it goes back to your statement about mindset, right? It's really about mindset and just being. I see how important it is to, pay attention to not just the overall, but looking at whether, yes, you shifted and changed to plant-based, but are you able to maintain tone, right? Muscle tone. Are you able to maintain muscle strength? I think those things are um, critical to consider. Chi says excessive protein just creates more acid in the body, and that can affect muscle gains. With plant-based, you tune into your own genetics a bit more, and you may use shakes and supplements to bulk. All right, I see, I see, I see. And I guess the supplements, that's where some of the pea protein conversation comes in, because I know a lot of people who do work on vegans who are bodybuilders, right? Plant-based people who are bodybuilders and they're working out and so on. I do see that leaning toward things like pea protein supplements, and so I could see how, I definitely see how you know they that leaning on the excessive protein um can be the focus for people who are bodybuilders, because they're preoccupied with bulking up, and I'm guessing whether they're vegan or non-vegan, bulking up is the focus. I guess once a bodybuilder, always a bodybuilder. It don't matter. Your focus will always be that, you know. And pea protein is green peas is actually what pea protein is made from. So, and green peas is one of the things I didn't mention, but green pea is one of the peas that you can consume. Doesn't require soaking like legumes. It's not a um it's the green peas are fresher, so no soaking is required like that, but they definitely have good levels of amino acids that will help to build plant-based bodies up. Let's see, there are a few others. Hold on, let me get to it. Chief says, I'm there's so much to read. So Chief says, often your bodybuilding, when bodybuilding, you are perpetually dehydrated, as is your cutting, you don't want to bloat. After a certain age, it's not healthy to even go hard and compete. I see. I see. So that's partly why it's high levels of animal protein increases acid and uric acid in the body, but there's also the idea of being dehydrated. Hmm. So why is it so difficult after, I wonder why it's so difficult after age 40. Again, I'm going to go back to the quality of protein and that the body is producing, you know. Chief also says, sorry, body weight exercises and a plant-based diet can be done until the day you die. But you may not achieve a bodybuilder's physique. You don't need meat for muscle tone. Strength is another story. I see. So you're identifying strength and muscle tone separately. I see. I see. I remember years ago we were having a discussion, just some random people who were plant-based, some who were not plant-based, some who were plant-based but not necessarily vegan. And one person was saying that they trained a lot, right? They did a lot of running and anything that any kind of exercise that dealt with stamina, right? But they did a lot of long distance running. And one of the things that was mentioned was that once they shifted to plant-based, they noticed that there was a difference in strength. Their strength capacity went down, right? So even though they kept running and kept moving and shifted to plant-based, their muscle tone was still there. They still had muscle mass, but their strength, the literal ability to lift weights and lift heavier items actually decreased. Right. So you are definitely onto something with the strength being another story, because yeah, I have heard conversations around the decrease in strength. And yeah, just from that shift. Brother Antonio says, when I stopped eating meat, I found that my body felt lighter and more energetic. Do genetics come into play in terms of what you just said about gaining muscle mass and maintaining it? I think genetics definitely comes into play. I mean, it comes into play, but at the same time, it doesn't, Lakira spoke to muscle memory. And so it, it's also that idea of mindset too. Like, you have to put your body to the test. You have to, you have to work out. There's nothing, that can get us to go around it. You're gonna have to work out. And I think when we're eating, especially with a plant-based diet, I find that the proclivities normally lean towards sweets, high carbs, and high fats. And when you desire high carbs, high fat, it becomes a challenge, because now you're fighting with keeping the weight off. You're fighting with reducing fat and keeping your body weight down, but also making sure that you maintain muscle, or build muscle for that matter, period. So, but I definitely think genetics play a part, but even though genetics plays a part, I think we all have the responsibility to work out daily. The Anue charges us to move daily, and so that daily movement will ensure that our muscles get worked. And I know right now it's hard, right? Because I'm sure many of us who are in the chat are actually working, probably working remotely. I don't want to speak for everyone. So that that really increases the challenge, because it means that every day, you know it's not part of our regular routine, going out or going to um, fulfill our career or job requirements. For those of us who do that, you have to actually put aside time to move. So it's I'm sure it can challenge you. I think I'm behind here. Let me see if I can catch up. Lakira said, great question. These are conversations that I have often with my youth who seeks to build muscle as a high school football player, as a plant-based child in a meat-eating world. But health and longevity is a form of strength. I see. Health and longevity is a form of strength. I'm taking notes, y'all. and screenshots. This is so good. Kuya says that's what I want: muscle tone and strength. As I move more into plant-based eating, I'm often convincing myself that what I'm eating has enough nutrients. You can Sister Queer, you can calorie count, you can utilize, you can, I don't think you have to, but you can if you're starting off and there is a bit of hesitation or unsurety. You can count calories, you can count nutrients, and I think meal planning is important because it allows you, if you're not someone who is inclined to eat a variety, or from a wide variety of nuts and seeds and greens and grains and so on, and you tend to stick with what you know or what you already have developed a palate for, you're going to find a lot of trouble balancing nutrients. um, yeah, so making sure that you hear people say, okay, eat from the rainbow, but making sure that you really do look at the greens that you consume and you select carefully a wide variety, include legumes, make sure you're getting in cruciferous veggies, make sure you're getting in dark green leafy bitter ones, right? I mean, they're bitter, but if it's bitter, it's good for the blood and it's good for your digestion. So that's the way to go. Protein powders just turn into concrete in your stomach. You have to tune into the neural and the neural aspect of muscles. Also, some naturally don't have big muscles. You have to work with your natural base. I see. So that goes back to the genetics question, Brother Antonio. What she says in terms of just tuning into our muscles and the genetics of our muscles and what we naturally come with, right? We naturally come with this. For me, I will say it has always been. I've never been one to be like completely muscled and toned. There are periods of time where I have worked on that, but it has always been like a struggle for me, building and maintaining muscle mass. You know, but that's a good point about the protein powders that they turn into concrete. It makes me think about your statement, Chief, earlier about the bodybuilders who would be, dehydrated, because I think that's one thing that I notice powders do, and I don't use a lot of them at all, but I do enjoy adding spirulina, and sometimes I use a little bit of red stuff, but I am not a pea protein person. But when I do use proteins, it does feel very drying and dehydrating. And powders, when you think about a powder, it's dried out. So if the body has to process it, it has to reconstitute it. Anything that's dried, we have to add water to it so that it can get back to, it can be moist again so we can actually process it, and the body can assimilate it. So it makes sense that if we consume lots of powdered proteins and so on, it really extracts moisture from the body in order for the body to assimilate it. Kuya says, but overall health is important. Um, so I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom because I think I'm missing out. I'm moving so slow. Chief says, Lakira Tompkins, high school males don't need to go crazy with extra protein because of the peak quality of their testosterone. 4 to 6 meals a day, cardio and strength training is all they need. Okay, excellent. Those are excellent tips. Excellent tips so that they, 4 to 6 meals a day. All right. And those will be, Chief, those will be 4 to 6 large meals a day or 4 to 6 small meals a day? Should they be, engaging in things like portion control, or is it based on, hunger? Chief also says, also between males and females is very different. Often vegans create unisex eating expectations, but meat eaters are more clear on the gender differences. Yeah, and I think meat eaters are more clear on the gender differences because we've relied heavily on what, the FDA and um, other policy creating agents have created for us when it comes to, typically what's expected for a male or female, typically what a woman should eat, what a man should eat or consume, down to our BMI, which is not really a good measurement of health at all, but it's utilized, right? But down to things like a BMI or waist um, sizes and so on, those are dictated for us. So I think that's why meat eaters feel like they're more clear on the gender differences because somebody created it. I don't think vegans have had, or people who are plant-based, I don't think there's such a thing as, like the stipulated measurements and so on. So that may be one of the reasons. That may be one of the reasons. Lakira says, give thanks for confirmation, Chief. Deidre says, I thought that exercising and being plant-based would be, I missed out a whole lot, would be difficult, but that was not the case. I actually have more energy and I'm able to move my body weight much easier because I am lighter. Right, that's true. Reducing that weight allows you to feel more agility, right? You have less weight to move around. Brother Antonio said, never consider the gender differences of what we consume, Chief Yuya. Yes, this is true. All right, so Akuya says, yes, I'm diving into more variety. All right. Eliminating meat from my diet has permitted my body to function as it should. This is true. And it does increase gut. Listen, if you increase your gut health, you increase your mental health. I'm not talking about the stress that people give you. That's something else. That's something else. But let me tell you, it will affect your ability, your gut as well too. The brain and the gut, just there's this, it has been explained already. There is what's considered the brain gut axiom. There is a connection between them, and it is this consistent back and forth. Both environments influence each other. So yeah, Sister Kashia, kudos to that. If you have increased the benefit of the health of your gut, you definitely will experience that improvement in the mind as well, or in the brain function. The brain function, to be exact, because there is a distinction between the mind and the brain. Yes, even Chief US says, even when you research diets and fitness routines, they hardly ever specify gender. Most fitness or food information is that designed for women. Hmm. 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 Okay. I'm gonna, okay. Okay. Chief also says the meals could be small or large. Okay, so this is in response to Sister Lakira's, well, my question um, about the response you gave to her. There has to be determination. This has to be determined, by metabolism of the youth and their activity levels. Right. So it's so good that you mentioned activity levels, because I think that's something I wanted to mention earlier and I didn't. And then I'll close off. But it's, something that has been said before. And I think, Chief, you have said this so many times, right? Like, your activity and what you do will dictate what you consume, right? But what foods we consume. And that's because if I'm not, I had to think about that. Well, I didn't have to think about it. It literally means if you are not moving every day, if you're not exercising, if you don't have routines in place when it comes to moving and lifting, and body strength training. I'm outside, so I feel like something walking on me. I don't know what it is. But yeah, if we're not exercising and moving, then obviously you need to consume much less carbs, or much less food that will give you energy. So like, I see how one feeds into to the other. Definitely. Brother Antonio says, no, I'm thinking back and trying to remember when I've ever met a masculine vegan. Eh, okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Uh, uh not with a 10-foot pole. Chief Furia Music says, women rule the diet industry. You also have to take age into account as well. I see. So age is taken into account as well as, yeah, this is true. This is true. Most is probably not probably mostly women. I have not looked this up, but it would be mostly women sitting on those boards making those decisions, and probably even doing the research as well too. So the information is biased. Then this is what you're saying. The information is biased. Wow. Wow. So I guess I a follow-up question I want to ask for you know anyone who is willing to answer, because I read through many of your responses, and I think I do want to ask. I see that there's a lot have shared that shift and change to plant-based or vegan or vegetarian, strict vegetarian, whichever one you are utilizing for your health and to balance your well-being. um like, I'm interested in what those levels, you said energy levels have improved, but I want to know, have you noticed, even though you're consuming something that's vegan, have you noticed any particular times when you find that you have reduced levels of energy? All right, not so much reduced levels of, increased levels of energy, but reduced levels of energy. And I ask that because I think sometimes we don't pay attention to because we think that foods are vegan and they're vegetarian, they're all good. We never really pay attention to the effect that a particular food has on us, right? And not so much from an food allergy point, but from a body composition point, right? Or in terms of how that food is assimilated into our body. So that's something that like, I thought of as I was reading through all of the testimony around increased levels of energy and even gut health and clear mind and so on. What are the foods that decrease your energy, and you know it but you still go back to it, right? She says it's all mind state, Brother Antonio. There are a lot of whey fish male vegans, too many, but you can be vegan and still maintain your edge. Losing the carnivore weight increases testosterone. Mm. This is, you know, that's a whole different conversation when you talk about um, decreasing testosterone and meat consumption, right? Because we hear and we've read and read and read and probably had many discussions with friends, family, relatives, whomever, about the hormones that are pumped into all of the meats that people consume, and we could talk about bodybuilders who take steroids and other things, other hormones that help to boost and bulk the body. But that's definitely a very profound point, the idea that losing carnivore weight increases testosterone. And I share with me and let me know if I'm interpreting or understanding the statement wrong, but I get that you're pointing to a direct connection between meat and the decreasing in testosterone, or consuming meat and it's affecting the hormonal balance, right? And I'll pause a little bit because there's always this 20-second delay. Excuse, there's like a whole truck coming through here. So I'll close out if there's no one that wants to share, but I'll answer my own question and I'll say this, right? I find that when I consume foods that are high in carbs but low in fiber. And I'm not a fiber person, but high in carbs or low in fiber, I find that my energy levels dip, right? And the if I go a day or two without, which is hardly, without greens or green veggies in my diet or in my meal plan or in any of my meals, I find that my energy count begins to decrease or deteriorate. So that's always something that will drag me down. Yep, Brother Antonio, you hit it on the head. Potatoes. Potatoes will definitely do that to you. I know plant-based people, vegans, love the pasta. It is so easy to jump to pasta, but pasta can be, I know that can have the same effect too. Things like rice as well, you know. To close, Brother Antonio says, got your chief, your music. There's a lot more science to food than I realized, but the mentality of the individual is critical. Yeah, there's a lot of the biology and the chemistry, and a lot of it I you know you we don't study it enough. I don't study it enough to know how my body functions and reactions, even and reacts, sorry, even to certain foods, but even to potatoes. Like, yeah, you hear about the carbs, but there must be a particular enzyme, I'm gonna look it up, um or chemical in the potato that causes that lethargy, right? That lethargic reaction. And listen to me. If you consume it the day before, I'm telling you from experience, you get up the next day. I think I said this to y'all before. Your eyes glued down. You feel like you can't move. It's almost like it's poison. It's as if it's poisonous. Really crazy. But yeah, I have two other people who say potatoes are the problem. So, stay away from them. Pasta can have the same effect. All right, y'all. Peace and power to you. Wellness is yours. We are 52 minutes in. Thank you all for sharing in the space and asking questions. Thank you very much, Chief Yuya. Honor and respect to you. Thank you for sharing so much and giving so many tips and tricks and hacks and asking great questions. Thank you, Lakira, for sharing your knowledge around, some of the best foods to consume. Thank you all for sharing some of your experiences and the effects. I say peace, and I'll see you all on Thursday for another midday motivation. If you are looking for CMOS, if you are looking for herbal blends, check out our website, www.sovereigneats.com. We have a few foodie freebies on there for you if you're looking for a great detox chart. We have one up there, and there are a couple other things that we would like to share with you. If you have questions, don't be afraid, DM. Please share this video and leave a thank you in the comment section after we close. Peace. Enjoy the rest of your day, y'all.